1. Short story. My mom had a stroke the day the world shut down from COVID. Our family has been working hard to help her recover and learn our new normal while dealing with pandemic-related issues. It's been a hard few years, to say the least, with many ups and downs with her health. Fast forward to a few months ago. Mom is rushed back to hospital and ends up spending a full month for various reasons. Each day is a new diagnosis and added fear. My family and I have to continue our regular work schedules while also taking turns being by her side and trying to understand what is happening. This particular day I'm struggling hard. I'm scared and sad, but I don't want to call out of work. I need the money, but also need the normalcy of the work day. I get a table of 4 and they're cool, to my face. I do my best to camouflage my emotions, which I have been doing the whole night. I am mostly just in robot mode, but I'm there and they're being taken care of. I'm just not giving them the extra jokes and playfulness I usually would. But at this point it's almost closing time and I'm just emotionally depleted. They seem to be having a good time. They're drinking and eating and stay a while. They let me know they work at a nearby restaurant. I haven't been there yet, so we talk about their menu and offerings. Finally, it's time for them to cash out. I drop their checks, and while I go to cash them out, they ask that I send a manager over, so I do. I don't think anything of it. When they leave, I pick up their checks, 3 tipped. Okay, no biggie. But 1 left 0. I'm shocked and think to myself, they said they were from the industry. They should know at the very least that I have to pay for them to be there. Then I notice a note that says something along the lines of, "If you aren't happy and can't give 100% to your tables, maybe you should take the day off." Mind you, I haven't said anything about my personal life. They have no idea what I have going on. I admit I was in robot mode and doing my best to fake it till I make it. I guess I wasn't hiding it very well, but still, if you notice that your server is off and struggling emotionally in some way, why bring them down more? What was the point? Did it make her life better? Did it give her a better experience? Sure as shit made me feel worse and really just blown away and confused. I talked to my manager and the visit was to say the same thing. That I shouldn't be there if I'm not 100% available to tables. She knows the ins and outs of what I have going on, so she took time to check in with me. I'm thankful for that, but ultimately, WTF. 2. 6 years ago, I was working for a small restaurant group. They weren't exactly upscale, but I'd like to think that they were. Well, business was especially slow for a bit, so the owners decided to bring in a consultant who was a friend of the family. I never actually found out if he had experience boosting sales, but regardless, we had to endure him wandering around a restaurant, making his observations. His first recommendation was to start setting the tables with wine glasses, so that when guests would sit down, they would immediately be tempted to order wine. He also said that it ups the look of the tables. That when you're looking out on the floor and you see a sea of glasses, it creates a multi-level look. What he failed to realize is that we aren't known for our wine. There's maybe 4 varieties each of white and red, and that's even including the house wine. That, and we don't have nearly enough wine glasses to be able to stock every table with them, and it would create a lot of extra bussing to bring the unused glasses away. Already this guy's brilliance is shining through. He also suggested that we stop bringing out water when greeting the table. Make table bread a request item and not an automatic drop after the order is placed, and a slew of other changes that our regular customers actually come to us for. His greatest contribution to the restaurant was one that wasn't rooted in any sort of reality or logic. We didn't have any problem with inventory shrink, and there was no suspicion of theft. He installed a padlock on the kitchen fire escape. His reasoning was that this would surely prevent theft. When I first saw it, I notified the manager on duty, but they wouldn't do anything, because this was a decision backed by the owners. Since the consultant suggested it. Well, we will unlock it once the rush is over. Okay, fine, you had your chance. So I wait till my shift ends, and I call the fire department anonymously. Dialed *67 before the full number. I told them that I am a server, don't want to lose my job, don't want to be identified, and don't want the place to get shuttered since at the time I'm trying to work through college. I told them that ownership had padlocked the fire escape and the dude gets pissed. He seemed to have a hunch that it was a different restaurant. But when I told him which one it was, he still wasn't surprised. The fire chief looked through the records and found that our restaurant was due for an inspection anyway, so he would be coming through ASAP. I found out my next shift a few days later from one of the bartenders that the fire chief did indeed come by and absolutely tore into the MOD when they found the padlock. Fines were going to be levied if it wasn't removed before the chief finished his visit. I never saw that consultant around again. I did not stick around long after that either. 3. I was just reminded of my first job way back in the day when I was in high school. I was 17 years old and worked as a waitress in a family-style restaurant with 3 dining rooms and a front counter-like ice cream shop space. Because I was in high school, my shift was always 4 p.m. to close, 8 p.m. Also, I did not work every day. Only alternating days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sundays. For my very first shift, the owner trained me that the closing responsibilities also included cleaning the restaurant, wiping down all the countertops, tables, chairs, and benches, then running the vacuum on all 3 dining rooms and mopping the floor of the counter area and entrance, and cleaning both the bathrooms. Plus, on Sunday, I had to clean the front windows and glass entrance door. He had a handy checklist to make sure everything was done. If it was slow, I could clean the windows during my shift. I didn't complain about it when I was first hired because it was my first job and I liked having spending money. The owner worked with me for closing, so he would spend his time cashing out the register and then wipe down the counter in the front, and sometimes mop, so me just doing the other tasks I was usually done by 8:30 to 8:45. After a few weeks, he told me I was doing a good job and he trusted me to close up on my own. He would lock the front door, cash out the register. I would do all the cleaning and leave through the kitchen back entrance since the door could be locked and then exit. I never had a key. It always took me at least an hour to close, sometimes longer if the bathrooms were in bad shape. My complaint became that the other crew who worked the opposite days from me never seemed to do as good a job of cleaning as me. In fact, I was sure they weren't cleaning the bathrooms at all. I left one stall unmopped on purpose to catch them. I knew they weren't closing, and the way I was told, we were supposed to follow the checklist. So I'm complaining to one of the dishwashers in the kitchen about it one night, and he doesn't understand but tells me to talk to the other waitresses about it. The other waitress, who's about 25 and has years more experience than me, informs me it's never been part of the server job to clean, that when their shift ends at 8 p.m. they just leave and the cleaning crew comes in at night to do all those things. So I go to the owner, timid because I don't want to complain. But I'd been there almost a year and would be up for a raise in a few weeks and didn't want it to count against me. He informs me the janitorial company he used to use have become too expensive, so he first cut them to every other day and later to only cleaning the kitchen instead of the full restaurant since he had me doing such a good job on the dining rooms and front counter area. He told me he had been paying them like $450 a week and how that was just too much for a family-owned restaurant to afford. That night, as I'm cleaning the toilets, I start doing the math in my head. It was the early 80s and minimum wage was $3.25. But I was a waitress, so server wages were $1.50 an hour since we got tips. But I didn't get any tips after we closed, so I was making less than $2 a night for the time spent cleaning this restaurant that he had previously been paying an outside service to clean. I dumped my cleaning bucket and left and never went back. I didn't give notice, I just walked out and never went back. I was too chicken shit to even go collect my final paycheck. He mailed it to me like 2 weeks later. 4. I've worked in hospitality before and met some odd people, but never have I ever experienced something so strange. To give you some context of the encounter, I'm a female in my early 20s. This occurs in Australia, where the cafe culture here is that commuters grab a takeaway coffee on their way to work around 7 to 9 a.m. Then it's quiet till lunchtime. Today was my first shift at a new job. A small cafe nestled right next to a suburban train station, so a lot of city workers came through to get a takeaway coffee on their way to the station in the morning. This whole interaction is burned into my mind. I pretty much remember what was said well enough, so I'll do my best to keep it as accurate as possible. It's 9 a.m. and the cafe is pretty quiet. There's only 2 tables that have customers. Yeah, unusual for a Friday morning, but the weather today was dreadful, so maybe that deterred most people. The cafe has 17 total tables. One is a communal table with a bench on one side and 4 chairs on the other side, with a single chair on either end. On the end of the communal table backs up to a front window. So, someone seated there would have their back facing the street and has a direct line of sight to where the register and coffee machine is. This table is also to the right of the entry door. A young, typical office worker-looking guy in a suit walks in as I'm wiping down the communal table. I greet him and tell him that he can sit anywhere he'd like. He had dark ginger hair that was neatly trimmed, a dark blue suit with a red tie, and a brown briefcase. He points to the table I'm cleaning. "Can I sit here?" "Sure, go ahead." I didn't think anything of it. I also like sitting at a clean table, and it was right near the door, so perfectly reasonable. He sat at one end of the table with his back facing the window. I brought him water and a glass, as well as a menu. "Can I get you any drinks to start, or would you like some time to decide?" I ask, notepad and pen at the ready. "What drink here do you hate the most?" Internally, I'm thinking, oh, okay, so he knows what to avoid. That's valid. I reply honestly, I personally have a strong dislike for coffee, but the coffee here is apparently really good. And I give him a brief spiel about the kind of coffee beans we have. Man, I really tried my best to do a casual laugh, but it came out sounding a bit nervous. "In that case, I'll have an extra strong, long black." I smile and say, "Sure thing, it will be ready in just a moment." I go over to the barista after putting it through and explain to her what just happened. Quietly behind the safety screen that is the massive coffee machine, she's like, "I thought I heard him say that, but it's not that weird. People are like that sometimes." We both shrugged it off. With the coffee done, I brought it out to him. "Are you ready to order any food?" I ask. Usually these kinds of businessmen order something simple, but like to change it a lot, so I'm expecting to have to write down his order. He said he wanted a plain croissant. Nice, a normal thing to say, love it, I think to myself. Would you like that warmed up for you? "How would you eat it?" he asked. Alright, I'll play your game, dude, so I tell him the honest truth. My friends make fun of me for it, but I like to eat a cold croissant by unraveling it to get to the middle. It's just more fun that way, I reckon. I like to do this because it is fun, especially since you get to save the best part of it for last. The soft, fluffy center. Hate me for it, I don't care, but maybe give it a go and you'll see what I mean. But the main reason I answered honestly was because I was interested and wanted to see if he'd actually do it. He just nods and does that frown smile thing. To clarify, I asked him, "So you want a plain cold croissant?" "Yeah, that'd be great." In my mind, I was thinking, this is a bit, right? He's joking with me for sure. I prep his order, drop it off for him, and I head straight back to the barista. I join her in organizing cutlery, since the other waitress is on break. And of course, I update her. We watch from behind the coffee machine as he slowly unravels the entire croissant. Though that's not quite how I do it, I take pieces at a time. I did realize that it would have been easily misinterpreted as fully unraveling the damn thing. I didn't have anything to say to her. The barista and I just kind of looked at each other. She breaks the silence, though, and calls him an absolute mad lad. I tell her that I love this guy, he's my favorite new cryptid of a person. Our manager overhears me say this and asks what's up. We tell him everything, and his conclusion is, "That guy is probably writing about our service, you know. That or he's a demon." We laugh, and I check to see if Finance Bro is up to anything else, and sure enough, he is skulking the coffee. Skulking meaning chugging in Aussie slang. "Dude," is all I managed to say to the barista. She says something like, "This has got to be regular for him." The cafe got a bit busier, as now about half an hour has passed and the guy's just working at his laptop. Occasionally I make eye contact since he's right by the door and window, and it's natural to look up and see who's walking in to greet and seat them. I got busy with my other tables, so somebody else ended up clearing his table, and I regret that because I really wanted to ask how his meal was, if he enjoyed it or not. I really wanted to get to know this guy. Maybe he was secretly reporting on our service, or maybe he was just odd. The barista managed to be the one that processed his payment. Once I wasn't actively busy, I asked her how it went, and she said it was just a regular interaction. Other than when she asked him how it was, he replied, "Exuberant." I'm sorry, but who on earth just casually drops exuberant in their day-to-day? Apparently this guy, and my life is that tiny bit more interesting for it. She joked that maybe it was his horrible way of flirting. I of course said that although it didn't work as a flirtation tactic, he certainly is now stuck in my mind forever, so I guess he sort of achieved that at least. I didn't exactly feel uncomfortable, weirded out for sure, but I love working hospo for the very reason of getting to meet the weird people. It's like an interactive game of people watching. So thank you, random guy, you've given me a story to tell for the rest of my life, and I hope you enjoyed your meal. 5. Server of 6+ years here. Whenever I go out to eat, I make sure to tip a healthy amount for obvious reasons, even when the service is below par. I understand people have their off days, could be new and or could be going through a lot in life. However, I had the most horrible experience as a guest. I met up with my boyfriend and a few friends after my shift this afternoon for dinner. I arrive early and order everyone a water. I notice my server is the same server I had just a week before. When I had him last, he seemed weeded the whole time, forgetting to grab my beer that had been sitting at the bar for 20 minutes. Our food came out later than normal, and it took us another 20 minutes to find him to ask for boxes. No worries though, he's just weeded, tipped 25% and left. Tonight was a totally different story. It wasn't as busy as last week, so I figured it would be a quicker experience. After my boyfriends and friends arrived, he promptly came over and asked about appetizers. I insisted it would take us a few minutes to figure out an appetizer, so he left. My friends drink a lot of water, and in this time, they were almost done with their waters. Server comes back over. "I'll grab some more water." "Thanks," we said. And before I could announce that we had decided on an appetizer, he turns around. I said, "Excuse me, I think we also decided on this appetizer, please. Thank you." "Okay, I'll get that in for you," he says. Minutes go by, no water refill. We notice him walking past our table numerous times to his other tables. Still no refills, no worries. Maybe he got weeded a bit. He comes back. "Are you ready to order?" "Yes," we all say. We tell him all of our orders. My friend asks if we can have more waters. "Yeah, sure," our server says. He comes back a few minutes later with one water, not a pitcher. We all needed our waters refilled by this point, not just one person. We leave him be and think maybe he realizes and will be back with a pitcher. 10 minutes go by, nothing. 20 minutes go by, nothing. We constantly see him going back and forth to his other tables, but refusing to walk directly to ours. By this point, I'm wondering what's going on with our appetizer. It was a simple appetizer that is ladled into a couple of bowls and set out with chips. Did he forget? Who knows? 10 minutes later, our appetizer finally comes out. It's on the brink of being cold. It's okay, we will eat it because we are hungry, and it's not that big of a deal, right? We remind him about the water refill. "Oh, right," he said and walked away. By this time, we have been there for 35 minutes. I can see it getting busier in the restaurant. We eat the appetizer and wait patiently for the water refill and our food. Another 15 minutes goes by, and here comes our food. It's mine and my boyfriend's. Looks correct and looks good. He leaves to go get the other half of the tables, or so I assumed. We realized after he left that we had no silverware also. That's okay, we will tell him when he brings the other plates out. I see him exit the kitchen 5 minutes later, with nothing in his hands. Where's my friend's food? I hear my friends sucking up what little water they still had in their cups from the ice melting. And where's the water refill too? 15 more minutes go by, still no friend's food or water. My boyfriend and I are trying to slow down eating for the respect of our friends who still don't have their food. We ended up not eating anything more until their food comes out. We flag down our server and ask if they are going to get their food or water, to which he replies, "Yeah, it should be out soon." I'm thinking, man, if it was me, I'd get written up or even fired over this. Here it is now 25 minutes after my boyfriend and I got our food, and my boyfriend is livid. Ours is cold from waiting, and they still have no food or refills. My boyfriend goes to find a manager. He returns to the table, and the manager he spoke with comes to the table with water refills almost immediately. We thanked her and asked about the food. She goes to check on it. Meanwhile, our server got word that we had spoken to a manager. He comes by the table to take empty glasses, and with an attitude says, "We have 3 new cooks working back there, so..." and walks off. What kind of excuse is that? I don't care how many new cooks you have. My friend's food should have came out at the same time as our food. We are the same table. 10 more minutes go by, and we see our server approaching the table with a tray of food, finally. We all get to eat, until I realize it's one entree, and it's not either of my friends. He tries auctioning it off to our table. That's not our food, my friend says. "Oh, okay," says our server, and goes to another table with that tray. My friend is keeping track of how long it's been since my boyfriend and I had gotten ours. It has been 30 minutes. My boyfriend is fed up, and by this point we're all ready to leave, and my friends are wanting to eat elsewhere. My boyfriend gets up to ask for the manager to come by our table again. As soon as he gets back, here comes our server with our friend's food. One of their entrees was incorrect, but they took it anyway. At this point, we all want boxes and just want to leave. Here comes the manager, a different one than my boyfriend had spoken to earlier. She apologized profusely and aimed to make everything right. This was the first apology we had heard the whole night. We told her that it wasn't her fault and thanked her. Needless to say, I was absolutely appalled at the type of service we got. We would have been okay if all our food took longer than normal, but my friends not having theirs for 30 minutes after ours was unacceptable. I honestly believe he forgot to ring theirs in somehow. But I still don't know how that could have happened when we ordered at the same time. The whole experience took us 2 hours from start to finish. It was also the first time I had left a $0 tip to a fellow server. Has anyone else had an experience this bad? Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, episode 190. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, if you could please boop the like button and share the video with friends and family members. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you very much to everyone who's already done so. And before we go on, we have a couple of shoutouts to give. And the first shoutout goes to the author of the first story, and that goes to Reddit user ragepanda. Thank you very much, ragepanda, for allowing us to use your story. And the second shoutout goes to the author of story number 4, and their art Instagram account will be linked in the description next to their story, K. Celestina. I hope I'm getting that right. I think it's Polish. I looked it up. And thank you very much for allowing us to use your story. And some very nice things on their Instagram account. I recommend you all go check it out. Okay, now we'll move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. Right, now let's see. Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... Alright, I've asked people before about maybe jobs they'd like to do that they don't currently do. Is there a job you would never, ever want to do, no matter what? I can answer mine right now. I did retail for almost 15 years. There is absolutely no interest, no desire in my heart to ever go back there. Even when I use the self-service at checkouts, I still get the shakes. Retail trauma, not a good thing. No. It's probably not an actual term. I may have just made that up. But yeah, I do not want to go back there. And if you're willing to share, I'd love to read yours in the comments below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.